Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays!
Welcome to Raising Healthy Humans, where you as a busy mom can come each week to find information on health and wellness for your family. Enjoy experts discussing tips to help raise children through each phase of life. Gather current information on nutrition and wellness, and listen to Courtney, a personal trainer, health coach, movement specialist, and founder of FormFit, a community where she helps busy moms move more. Here, she provides you with movement and posture tips while sharing information you need to help raise healthy humans.
I had the pleasure of speaking with Kim, a parenting coach through the Jai Institute for Parenting, who believes the quality of the relationship with our children is what creates positive change in the world. As a mom of children, now 17 to 34, she speaks into what it is like parenting teens, things we can do to help ensure our children are well-grounded, signs to look out for, what is normal at this age, and how we can ensure we stay connected with our children through the teen years. I did not personally realize how emotionally difficult these teen years were going to be. So I took a lot out of this conversation, and I really hope you do as well. Let's listen in.
Sure. My name is Kim Muench. I am the founder of Real Life Parent Guide. I'm also a certified conscious parenting coach through the Jai Institute for Parenting. I am the mom of 5. My kids at this point I have a daughter who's 17 and then sons that are 19, 24, 28, and 34. So I became a conscious parent coach as a direct result of the challenges that I faced as a mom over 3+ decades of parenting. Namely, the biggest one being I was actually a teen mom. And then when my eldest son was 20, he walked through an addiction to alcohol, and it was parenting him through that and learning to navigate the really tenuous steps that go along with parenting a kid in active addiction, that then really brought me to a place of wanting to support and encourage other parents, especially those who are raising adolescents, because I don't think there's enough support and encouragement for parents going through these teen and young adult years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they white knuckle it a lot. And so I want to help parents do that a little bit less. So that's been my calling based on my personal experience.
Okay. With your son, were there signs leading up to that point with him and his alcoholism?
I would say yes.
Okay.
There
Now
were,
looking
but
back.
looking back, of course, right, hindsight. But you know what? With the strongest thing that I didn't pay attention to, and that I work with moms on a lot, is paying attention to my internal wisdom, my internal gut instincts. I think that it's very easy for parents to deny what might be going on.
Mm-hmm.
Little signs, little symbols. For my son, it wasn't so much that he was this social party king. I think he was introduced to alcohol, which is what his addiction was around. I think he was introduced in a social setting, but he was quelling anxiety and depression and OCD with using alcohol to be able to sleep, to be able to calm down. And so while there was, I would say, if you were going to ask me what were some of those things, we found alcohol missing from our liquor cabinet a number of times over his high school years. there were times I couldn't wake him up in the morning. And it's so hard when it's your first kid, because you don't know what's normal and what's not normal. But there were, even regardless of that, there were feelings that I had in my gut that I knew there was something going on. I just couldn't quite put my finger on what it was.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And then your other children, they're all
in very different spaces. So my oldest son, I guess I should close that point by saying he is 12 years, he'll be 12 years sober in May of this year. So
excellent.
It was a very difficult 18-month period of time. From the time that I got what I call my parenting wake-up call. He literally was in our home state. We had moved for my husband's job, but he had graduated high school and started community college. So he stayed in our home state. Okay. And it was his phone call to me really saying, Mom, I lost the last 3 days of my life to a blackout and I need help. That was what I call my parenting and personal wake-up call, quite frankly. But it was where I really understood I could no longer deny, well, he's not calling me back for 3 or 4 days. He's just busy. He's just, getting on with his life, and he has a girlfriend and all the things, and who wants to call their mom when they're 20 years old? But the reality was there was a lot more going on at that time. So I don't know what your question was. I can't remember what your question was.
No, that's okay. No, well, I'm thinking, so he was off at school and he trusted you enough to then come back to you and say,
yes. Yeah. And let me just tell you, and that was beautiful. And I mean, obviously I would tell you, because I had him so young, my friends, when he was a teenager, would come to me and be like, oh my gosh, you're going to have to give me some tips, because you and Nick get along so well. And we did have a really good relationship, but the reality is, and one of the things I didn't tell you earlier is that I had him, but his dad and I didn't stay together. Okay. So my son was going between two very different households. Okay. And once high school came, he had his own car and he had, I didn't have a lot of contact with his dad and all the things. And so it was a little bit different setup than your typical family with all the, kids living at home. And then we moved out of state for my husband's job and he didn't follow us. And so he was very far away. And it was me trying to navigate not only how to parent this child through addiction, but 1,200 miles from where we were, which was extra complicating. Yeah. But the other, so my other children they were high school, middle school, and preschool when this was going on with him. But it was really interesting. I know that I was not an overly present parent during this time period, because I never knew what was going to happen. He landed in jail a couple of times. I mean, there was just a lot. And so trying to remain a present parent to my other kids while navigating this was quite difficult.
Okay. So if we are parents, I mentioned to you earlier that I have 3 children. I have 2 boys, 16 and 14, and then my daughter just turned 11. Is there anything that you can recommend that we do to help ensure that they are on a path to being successful adults? I mean, these are very different years for us. I think once you hit the tween and teen years, you bring on a completely different element of navigating being a parent and how your children should be acting and responding to you. Do you have recommendations, or do you notice like how you differed with your first and then your subsequent children?
I will tell you this. I mean, the reason I think those years are different, as you mentioned, is because they've become more invested in their peers than they do in their family. And that's part normal, right? They're trying, as they progress through these teen years, they're trying to figure out who they are without their family.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we as parents, and how did I learn from, as I mentioned, I had what I felt was a very good relationship with my oldest son. We would talk about his girlfriend issues and his friend issues. And what I noticed is that for me in particular, he when he was in high school, he would tend to come out of his room and open up later in the evening. And I was tired because I, had a newborn baby, or, they're 17 years apart, my kids are. So I was exhausted. But one thing that I didn't change ever was being available in the later evening, because that's when they tended to open up. So always, it's about being present without being intrusive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being available. And by that, I mean, not only just like in the same space, but also that I work with moms on this all the time, is being your anxiety level being low, and you taking good care of your emotional well-being and your physical well-being, so that your kids will feel that they can come to you during these years. Because we all know that if someone is busy on their phone or doing 100 things, or they're, even if they're not busy, but we just tell our kids, feel our energy, and they will not come to us if we are stressed, or if we're under, a lot of other pressure, or relationship with our marriage is not good. They don't want to add to our already stressed life. So one of the things that I think is counterintuitive to our culture and the messages we get is how important it is for us to take the time for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, I walk 15,000 steps a day. It helps me be a better mom, just to be outside. And I meditate in the morning, 10 minutes. And I realize everyone's got to kind of work with their own schedule and what they've got available to them, and whether or not they have a co-parent in the same space that they're working with. But everybody needs to, I don't think it's more important than right now for us to understand that our taking care of ourselves as moms and as dads is it gives a direct result of whether or not our children will feel that they are seen and heard for who they are, and that they can come to us with their challenges.
Okay, perfect. So I'm thinking of my oldest. We're at a point, like you had mentioned, with the independence, that he's starting to, he's now driving, he has a girlfriend, he has his friends, they go out, they do things. What I'm curious about, and I know that they're starting to pull away, but my husband and I are noticing that our relationship with him is changing, and I'm not sure what's considered healthy and what's not considered healthy. Do you have thoughts on what you feel are healthy ways that they're, pulling away from us, and what might be something to pay attention to?
Well, I think if they're door slamming and you're always in constant tense conflict with them, that's definitely something you need to pay attention to.
Okay.
If they look you in the eye, if they come home on time, if they're 5 minutes late, you don't drop the hammer on them. There has to be a little bit of flexibility, but you don't want to be taken advantage of as a parent either, because they do need structure, and they will push their limits with you, because this is their time of testing things. How far can I get away? So if you can work hard to not take personally their behavior, but to get curious about what's going on. If you're seeing some things that worry you, to get curious about what's behind that behavior, and not, parents often jump to like, they're manipulating me. They only talk to me when they want something. They, called me a name and I'm so hurt. You kind of have to develop a thick skin during the teen years, and also be tenderhearted. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, there's no perfect formula. It's just, if you are running into a space where things are getting really tense, it's time to pay attention to it before it gets really out of hand, and to have a sit down conversation with this child and say, here's what I'm noticing. Do you notice the same thing? How can we turn this around? How can we create a win-win situation in our family? I know you're growing up and you need to have, some independence, but how can we work together? I think bottom line, when our kids are going through these years, working together, parenting with rather than over them is going to take you so much further.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think it's very normal for, say, a child to be in his, and I mean a teen to be in his room for the better part of the day? I mean,
Absolutely.
Okay,
I mean, there's no question. I have a 17-year-old daughter that if she's not eating in the kitchen, she's in her room.
Okay.
And when she's eating in the kitchen, she has her earbuds in. So if I want to talk to her, I have to say Mia, 3 times, or I'll go like this, or I'll text her. I'm just kidding. I don't text her, but
Well, and that's one thing that my husband and I were like, oh, you came without your ears on, because he's always got his headphones on and they're noise canceling. So he's really just in his own world most of the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of understand it. He's got 2 siblings. One is always out in the living room, and then one's kind of, she's everywhere. So he wants his own little space, and he and his brother share a room. So when his brother's out in the living room, he wants to be in his room. But yeah. I just, and it's one of those things where we start to, he'll tell us something. And I feel like at this point, he's becoming very independent. Like with school, there's no communication between parents and the school. I mean, we might get an email from the principal, but there's not a back and forth like you think of with elementary school, for sure.
Yeah.
So everything has to go through him in regards to information about the school. And he'll make, this is him making his own life decisions. And it's very hard, I feel, as a parent to stand back and just observe. Mm-hmm. Do you have thoughts on how we can approach topics? I'll give you an example. The other night, my son was talking. We have the pleasure of our county pays for schooling for college credits for kids that are dual enrolled. So he's heading into his junior year of school, and he's going to do part-time college classes. I said he was first going to do 2 classes. Then it jumped to 3 classes. Now he's talking about wanting to do 4 classes. And I was like, you might want to hold back. I want you to continue to experience high school and all of the great things that come with being in high school. And he got upset with me about that. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to.
Did he explain why? Okay, so you stated what and I totally understand that. I mean, there are definitely, I know kids who are working really far ahead, and why, what is the, I mean, right. Great. On one hand, it's like awesome, but on the other hand, it's like, why are you, rushing through life like this?
Yes. You're going to be an adult for a very long period of time. Like that's what I was thinking. You're going to be an adult for so long. Just enjoy this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so so I totally see your point of view, but I'm curious where, again, a little bit more about where he's coming from. So he must have felt defensive or upset. And so it's about, going back and revisiting the conversation and saying, look, I would like to listen and understand. And then you need to listen and not talk. Just give him the opportunity. I say to parents that you need to listen 80% of the time and talk 20% of the time when they are going through these years, when they're in high school. Your time for talking was a long time ago. And the more you can listen, the more you can learn. And often parents feel like, yeah, but if I let them speak their opinions, or I let them, then they think I'm, in agreement with them. I didn't say agree. I just say, listen to where they're coming from, and try and understand where they're coming from, because we want to understand their maturity level, their thought processes. And the reality is, as my daughter and your son and all these other teenagers are walking around with headphones in their ears, there is music, there is messages, there's YouTube videos, there is lots of information going in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just is really important for us to get a grip on kind of like where they're coming from. And perhaps if you listen, and you are that example of listening to where he's coming from, you'll not only better understand, but when you respond carefully, how you respond, because we all know if you go right back at him and be like, that isn't going to, so you're talking back to him and you've listened first. Hopefully he will listen, right? We model what we want. And so we definitely want to give him the opportunity to talk a little bit further about why this is so important to him. Perhaps it's personal pressure, that you would want to help him recognize, because we can be very hard on ourselves. Some teens are put a lot of, even if you're not putting pressure on him, like they can do that.
Right. Okay. Thinking about what you have mentioned in regards to talking to them and instead of you being the one who's talking, now you're the one who's listening. How do we navigate this with them? Because they're in their room, they're on their phone. They may never talk to us if we don't start.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm taking my daughter out for coffee today. And that maybe sounds silly, but we promise coming up, and she is parenting her. I feel like having a daughter at the end after 4 boys is completely different. It's keeping me on my toes. It's keeping me learning about a whole different aspect. Obviously, all of my kids have different personalities, but it's a totally different animal. And the closer she gets to the age, I'm just going to be honest with you, the closer that she gets to the age that I was when I had my son, I had him at 18, the more I'm triggered, right? And I have to realize that this child is not me.
Right. And
though she has a boyfriend, I can't, like, all of this is about our anxiety level. Okay. It's about knowing that the older they get, any illusion of control that we might have had, we don't have, especially once, they're out in the big world. So that's why it's so important for us to concentrate on building the connection with our kids, rather than have this tense, I'm here, you're here, you will listen to me, I pay for this, all of this stuff,
right,
just doesn't go well. So what could you say, hey, I'd like to spend some time with you. I try and make it on a regular basis.
Okay.
And maybe it's lunch, maybe it's ice cream, whatever it is that you can. I think, actually, to be honest with you, I think it's better to be outside of the house at times to do this, just neutral ground. That's why I asked her, and it was a little awkward because this is the first time I'm doing it, because I'm right with you on this. I found ways to connect to each of my kids, and she's been a little bit more distant, and she's very in between school and work and her boyfriend and being in her room. Like, she might grace us with her presence at dinner once a week. And then it's like, how are you? How's school? And I think in part she hangs back from dinner because she knows it's going to be an interrogation because we don't see her.
Right.
So it was a little awkward to invite her to coffee, but we're going to do that today. And I'm hoping that I can, do that on a regular basis with her. So that's my suggestion to all parents.
Okay. That's great. I love it. Have you noticed a difference? You mentioned that she has been more, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but kind of standoffish. That's not the word you use. Distant. Thank you.
Distant. Yeah.
Yep. Do you notice a difference between the boys and the daughter? Like,
yes.
Okay.
I mean, my boys are, again, they have all different temperament and different personalities. And I mean, to give you an example, my oldest, who is married now and lives in Austin, he's totally pierced, tattooed. He should have been born in Austin. I mean, my second son is in his 4th year of seminary to become a Catholic priest.
Oh, wow.
These
Okay.
two couldn't be more different.
Right.
Third son works in IT and, lives on his own. Fourth son studying psychology, wants to work with teenagers. So, I mean, they run the gamut, but we're at a point where they will call once a week, or my son who lives close by comes over for dinner once a week. So ultimately, I think our goal, if we think long-term about these relationships with our kids, is that we want to set this up in these years to be building this connection with them. And that's why, yes, she's distant. She's also very independent. It's like I think you said before, you're not quite an empty nester. Well, it pretty much is like an empty nester. She just kind of comes and goes, cleans her bathroom, does her own laundry, cleans her dishes after she makes them, but she really is very independent. To a point where, again, you go, oh my gosh, like she doesn't need me, or she's so, we have to work really hard as parents to detach from our kids' outcomes at times, to not take their things personally. That doesn't mean we accept them just being verbally abusive or physically abusive. Please don't misunderstand me there. Right. But there are times when they are in their emotional brain. These are the years when the emotional development is high and the risk-taking behaviors is high. So we have to take a little bit of that into account and not get super hurt if my daughter didn't want to have coffee with me. I wouldn't stop trying. I would try something else. That's the deal as a parent. You can't just go, well, I tried, and that's not okay. That didn't work. It has taken a long time for you to get to this relationship with this child. This didn't happen overnight. And so while they're changing, you can't just decide, fine, they're not behaving the way you want them to, or they're not interacting with you the way that you want them to. So you're just going to write them off. No, you have to understand that they are going through a ridiculous amount, and you are the calm in the storm.
That's great advice, because one thing I notice, I feel like we have to really, yes, we grow up when we have children, but you really have to start growing up when you've got teenagers.
Yes.
Because
yes,
I notice myself, I will get very, he'll say something, I'll say something, I'll, recommend something or say something, and then he will not like whatever I've said. And I will then say to myself, well, fine, I won't say anything ever again. And I'll just go off and just,
you get hurt,
and then
right?
Then I'm like, wait a second, grow up. Stop taking everything he says or does personally. Yeah. It's time to grow up and be the adult here, and, go. And that the other evening, I did go back in and talk to him and just stated my concerns. And also, and you mentioned, you touched on this with your daughter, with her age, how do you work with them on understanding, well, we're all going to have regrets. I mean, you choose either this or this. So we're all going to have regrets, but ensuring that they understand, this is where I'm coming from. I just want to make sure that you, not that I'm trying to put my feelings onto you, but I want you to see the whole picture.
I would start by asking them what their perspective is first, and then offering, again, listening before, because when you come in and say, here's where I'm coming from on this, it immediately puts them, I think, on more of a defensive. So, hey, I'd love to just hear your perspective on this at this point.
Okay.
Listen to understand, and then not to respond with your perspective, but, to continue to be curious and ask questions. And if it's appropriate, then say, I'm hoping that you'll listen for a minute, because here's the perspective that I have. And my daughter being 17 and having this boyfriend, and they've been going out for a while. Like I said, I'm triggered in ways that I never was with my sons. she's read my book. I wrote a book, and
Okay.
I was very, very detailed in becoming a mother so young and walking with my son through his addiction. So not all kids have their parents' book that they've read, and she chose to read it. Like, I did not want to push that on any of my kids. And we haven't talked about some of it yet. And I think that will come when she's ready to address it with me. But it's a lot for a kid to learn exactly what their parents have experienced. Not all kids have that information. And I think in terms of like, when is it appropriate to share your experience? Because I have a lot of parents that ask that, I smoked pot or I drank in high school, and, Mom, now my kid's doing it. And, should I tell them that this happened to me? I think you have to be careful, and it depends on the relationship you're having with your kids. If you're going to use it as a, don't do this because this is what happened to me, like a fear tactic, again, it's about how you talk about it with them. You may be fearful. You may want to really like warn them, this is what happened to me, and don't, but I think it also has to come again from a place that they're going to receive it well. And we all know, we were teenagers once, like, that whole dare talk and the whole, drugs and don't just say no, that doesn't work. We have to be in relationship with our kids.
Is there anything that we can do to ensure, like, especially once our children go out on their own, since you have older children, is there anything that you can recommend that we do once they're out of the home to help keep that connection?
Absolutely. Snapchat. I know people are going to shoot me for that, but
Seriously?
I'm on a, well, we have a family Snap, and
Okay.
that's, and that helps us all, because my one son's in Louisiana. Another one is in Austin. As I mentioned, we're in Dallas. I've got a son is a freshman at the University of Arizona. And so we're all over. And so Snapchat helps us. And I started a Snap streak with my 24-year-old son when he went to college, and we now have like, I don't know, almost 1,500 day streak. So it was a way. I knew that he was a kid that wasn't going to call me all the time, and I just wanted to make sure he was still breathing.
Right.
So, this is what, and now my one son that's a freshman, he would not do snaps with our family like before he left. And now we're on day 288. And that's how many days, that's how I know when we left him in Arizona, how, and so Snapchat, my older boys, they just naturally have gotten to a place where they will call once a week, and they get to a place, if you have created a relationship that is mutually respectful, and that you really listen again to understand them, and you work on yourself in the process of their teen years, they call and they ask me, how are you doing, Mom? They love the work I do. They really, I think my son Brigham, my 24-year-old, has probably sold more of my books than I have. I mean, and it's not because he's trying to be the favorite child or anything. He just truly believes in the message of limiting beliefs and how they can affect our relationships. So, so, if I had to put it in a nutshell, it would be listen more than you speak, work on your own emotional well-being, work on that, feeling of being triggered, question yourself. Why am I being triggered right now? Where is this coming from? Identify where you're feeling it in your body so that you can learn to redirect it before it gets really triggered. Our kids do need structure. I work with parents a lot on figuring out what are the boundaries they're going to put in place that are non-negotiables, and where can they be flexible. And the older we get, our kids get, the fewer non-negotiables we need to have. Like ours, obviously, our no underage drinking and drug use.
Okay.
That's the non-negotiable. There's lots of ways that we can be flexible with them and give them choice and agency in their life. But based on, in part, the experience I had with my oldest son, that is the non-negotiable. And so far it has held up, I think, because of the relationship that I've created with them.
And is that something you just said, like, this is a non-negotiable? Like, how did you?
The good question. I don't go walking around going, this is
Right.
not negotiable.
These are the 5 things.
Yeah, no, I think it's ongoing conversations that we have with our kids. It's the example that we give them. I know a lot of parents who will allow their kids to drink at home, or, whatever. And everyone has to figure out their own thing. But based on what I've learned about addiction, the longer we can hold our kids off, the better.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what a glass of wine or a beer feels like in our body. And, it's just really important to me that they wait. Not that 21 is a magic age, but their brain is so much more developed at 21 than it is at 15 or 16. I could never be a part of, contributing to that. Not every kid who has a drink at 18 is going to become an alcoholic. I'm not saying that either.
Right.
So
right.
It really is about parents. I think we've lost a lot of connection with ourselves because we're always looking to the outside, to the expert, to the book. And there's a lot of good books and there's a lot of helpful people. But at the end of the day, my goal is to help moms reconnect with their own inner wisdom, because nobody knows your children better than you.
Yeah. And I think I think that's absolutely spot on, because we have become such individuals that there's education at our fingertips, and we always go out to try to find it. And I notice it with my children as well. Like, if they have a question, they immediately look for the answer. And that inner knowing maybe isn't just kind of, being able to sit with not knowing, or having to figure it out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So, I mean, I'm not trying to talk myself out of a career, because I absolutely love helping parents.
Yeah.
But part of what I do is help them to remember that they are, the most knowing about their children, and that always looking outside and what everybody else is doing. And my kid's gotta, we have this comparison. It just happens. It starts when, my kid walked before your kid, or, we have this kind of competitive at times spirit going on. And really, not every kid is going to develop in like everyone else, and we don't want them to. So It's best for us to nurture the relationship and our children where they're at, and not where we think, want, or need them to be for our sake.
Yeah. All right. Can you tell us where we can find you and what we can learn more from you?
Yes. So my website is reallifeparentguide.com. And I am on Facebook and Instagram, but I actually have a pretty decent following on TikTok, and I love to do TikTok videos. So I am at Kim Muench Parent Coach on TikTok. My book, I mentioned that I had written a book, and the book is titled Becoming Me While Raising You, A Mother's Journey to Herself. And it's a real quick read, and it's available on Amazon, and it's actually free on Kindle, and also comes in paperback. So you can go to Amazon and find that there.
Okay. And I'll make sure everything's in the show notes as well. And then is there anything you want to leave us with for moms to be able to help them?
Yes, I will leave you with a quote that was downloaded to me a couple years ago. I think I was vacuuming or doing something mundane, mother-wise, but it's this: our children come through us, not for us, except for the lessons they reflect to us during their journey, in an effort to grow us up along the way.
Oh, that was great. Sorry. I'm going to get emotional with that. Thank you for that. That was amazing. I'm going to need that quote from you.
Yes.
So.
Well, it's in the back of my book, and it is something that really, like I said, I really fully believe that parenting is the greatest opportunity for us to grow ourselves up and sometimes reparent ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Yes. so much for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. I hope that you found this information valuable, and I hope that you were able to immediately use some of the information that was provided. Make sure to go check out our show notes for all of the links that we discussed today. As a mom, I understand that at times you can feel alone and are looking for that sense of community. Here at FormFit, I am bringing moms together in a healthy and supportive community. I would love for you to come join us over in our free Facebook community that is FormFit Community. Join us over there where we can get to know you more, or feel free to try out our membership free for 7 days. It provides you with workouts, recipe guides, information on healthy hormones, healthy habits, posture information, accountability calls, and in-person and Zoom events. Plus, you can receive one-on-one training from me for 50% off. Find out all the information by going to formfitonline.com so that you can learn more. Now, go out and enjoy your day while practicing small, healthy choices that will make lasting changes.